With the release of Fractured and Alterac Valley, I thought it would be extremely fun to play the best deck from the expansion, play 100 games with it, and see what would happen after 100 games. These are the results. Figure out what the best deck was. I went to hsreplay.net, went to the meta, went to Legend Top 1000, went to Tier 1, and found that Thief Rogue was the best deck currently in Fractured and Alterac Valley. Also went to Vicious Syndicate to see what their power rankings were for their recent Reaper report, and it turned out that Thief Rogue was the best deck in the game as well for them. And to give you some context on what kind of player I am, I have hit Legend every single season except for last year in November and December, and so far haven't hit it in January. So by playing 100 games at a pretty decent skill level, I was able to find some pretty interesting findings. Over my 100 game sample size, I won 60 of them and lost 40, which means I ended up with a 60% win rate over those 100 games, which is actually a really good win rate. By playing these 100 games, I started to learn the ins and outs of Burgle Rogue and started to play a lot better as I continued to play the deck. And I will probably keep playing this deck, which means I will probably get Legend with it. And that's the first advice I'm going to give to you in this video. If you want to climb to Legend, pick one deck and get really good at it. Learning what to mulligan for, learning what's the best play, should you go for tempo or value, and min-maxing your deck is a great way of getting better at the game and climbing the ladder. Now, I know I was a pretty good player to begin with, but I did learn a bunch of stuff that I never really noticed before through all my years of playing Hearthstone. And this is basically what I learned from playing 100 games with Burgle Rogue. I picked the best deck at top 1k Legend from both HS Replay and Vicious Syndicate, which means that this is technically the best deck at the game because this is the highest win rate deck against the best players in the world. But the meta that I was playing against and the rank I was currently playing against was not the best players in the world. It was players from all different ratings that were playing a lot different decks that you would probably see at top 1k Legend. This game is a perfect example of that, as I was going against Ping Mage, which is a tier 4 deck at top 1k Legend. May not be the best deck in lower MMR, but it definitely climbs the tier list a little bit more because you're not going against the best players in the world that actually punish you for making or playing a bad deck. Burgle Rogue has the reverse effect, where it's a tier 1 deck at top 1k Legend, but as you go lower in the ratings, it actually becomes a worse deck. Rather than being a tier 1 deck through Diamond through Legend, it is actually a tier 2 deck near the middle of the pack. So even though it may be the best deck in the game, it may not be the best deck for your current rating. It might be the deck that people are trying to counter. So it is important that you look through what your meta is and what decks are actually good. It's really important that you understand the ins and outs of a deck. The first step of this is understanding the mulligan, and Burgle Rogue really showcased how important it is to go for the best possible mulligan every single time. The difference of getting the Wild Paw Null or the double agent in your opening hand was a huge increase of win rate compared to if you don't get him in your opening hand. This is a very apparent example because of what Burgle Rogue wants to do, but make sure whatever deck you're playing, you sort by mulligan win rate on HS Replay to understand what mulligans you should be going for in every single game. Understanding the matchups is also a huge aspect of winning with a deck. If you know that you're supposed to be the aggressor compared to the defender, whether you fight for board, whether you go for a huge combo, could be the difference of you winning or losing a game. Huge thing that I realized is that I can only do 100 games with Burgle Rogue because I was actually having a lot of fun doing it. If you're not having fun playing the deck, this challenge or just playing the same deck consistently will not be a fun task at all, which will lead you to be more frustrated and be more angry when you lose because you realize that you're not having fun, you're just playing a deck to win. So when you pick a deck to climb to Legend or whatever rank you want to get to, make sure you find that middle ground of having fun and it's also a good deck. So that way you're still having fun even when you lose, because you're playing a deck that you actively want to play. The reason why I like Burgle Rogue so much is because A, it was a really good deck, but on top of that, this was so much fun to consistently have different options because of all the Burgle cards. Wand Thief, Swashbuckler, Reconnaissance all made every single game a super fun time because every game felt unique and I felt like I was doing something different. Challenge actually showcased to me quite a bit how impactful Variance is in a game like Hearthstone. Over 100 games, there was a lot of games where I felt like like my luck was on average. There were some games where I felt like my draw was unstoppable, and there was other games where I felt like I just lost the game due to my opening hand. That's the nature of playing a card game. Not every single game is going to be 50-50. Sometimes you draw really well, sometimes you draw really poorly, but what makes the good players good is that they make the best out of the bad draws. Playing a good deck like Burgle Rogue allows you to come back from situations that feel hopeless due to your opening hand being so poor. Another huge tip I have is changing your deck list based on what the meta is showing you. Sometimes you're going to go against a bunch of aggro, other times you're going to go against a lot of control. Sometimes it's going to be a very specific matchup over and over and over again. I'm talking about you, Pirate Warrior. It's important to look at your deck and ask yourself what cards are underperforming and which cards can do better in the current situation that you're going against. In my case, I dropped Janice and I dropped the Rush Trot Viper for 2 preparations, which made my deck a lot faster, and I was able to keep up with a lot of the tempo matches that I kept going against, like Pirate Warrior. Last things I realized when playing this challenge is that I was not that great at Burgle Rogue. Sure, I can win games, but I wasn't playing perfectly at all. There was a bunch of times when I was playing that I could have sequenced cards differently. For instance, I could have Swashbuckler first to see what potential option it would have given me instead of doing my other play first. Another great example of this was deciding whether or not I should Secret Passage on turn 1 with Knolls in my hand to discount them so I can play them on turn 2. In other words, don't expect to be great at a deck within your first couple of games, especially a deck like Burgle Rogue, which there are so many decisions to make. So don't get stressed out if you're losing games when you first start playing a deck. Don't get stressed out when you make mistakes 50 games in. This is what happens. People make mistakes, and it probably takes hundreds, if not thousands of games with a particular deck to become great at it. So don't go comparing yourself to the high legend streamer that you took the deck off of. Remember, they are experienced. They have played the deck a bunch in order for them to become that good at it. And this is the last thing I'm going to discuss in this video. The deck matters a lot. Don't get me wrong. If you're playing some homebrew deck that you've never played before and it's just a bunch of bad cards, probably not going to do that well. But the most important aspect of Hearthstone is you as the player itself. It's the pilot of the deck. So to compare, if you look at Burgle Rogue at top 1K legend, the reason why it's the best deck in the game is because the players who are playing this deck are playing it optimally, proficient, and know how to make the correct plays. You compare that to a bronze player who may not be as familiar with the mechanics or with the deck itself. They're not going to do nearly as well with that deck because they're not proficient with it. A great comparison of this is Pirate Warrior. In top 1K legend, Pirate Warrior is a tier 4 deck, but as you go lower in the rankings, Pirate Warrior becomes a much better deck because it's an easier deck to play. Anyways, I hope you ended up enjoying this video. This was a completely different video than I've done recently, as I'm trying to get back into standard again after taking such a long break, and this felt like it was a pretty fun thing to do. So if you ended up enjoying this video and want to support me more, make sure you like the video, subscribe if you have not, and comment below what deck you're thinking about trying this with. I might do it with another deck and maybe go a little bit more in detail talking about the ins and out of a deck, but I think this was a really fun experiment that I think almost everyone should try. You look fantastic. I'll see you the next one.